She needs somewhere to live. Your apartment would be perfect, my dad declared. I refused. The next morning, my cousin showed me photos that changed everything. I'm 29. After 6 long years of relentless work, countless overtime shifts, and saying no to virtually every social invitation, I could finally say I owned my own home. I remember the day I got promoted 2 years ago like it was yesterday. My heart had nearly stopped when my boss called me into his office, my mind racing through every possible mistake I might have made. But instead of the reprimand I feared, he handed me a contract with a significantly higher salary, praising my dedication and consistent performance. That moment changed everything. It was my chance to finally make my dream of homeownership a reality. From that day forward, I lived like a monk, embracing a level of frugality that sometimes worried my friends. No fancy clothes, no expensive dinners, not even the small luxuries most people take for granted. Every single cent went straight into my savings account. But it wasn't just my savings that made this possible. A year ago, my grandmother, my mother's mother, passed away suddenly from a stroke. In her will, she left me $150,000, money she had carefully saved throughout her entire life. For the granddaughter who reminds me so much of her mother, she wrote in her will, words that brought both comfort and tears. It was the most bittersweet inheritance I could have received, a final gift from the woman who had been more of a parent to me than my own father in many ways. When I found this 2-bedroom apartment, I knew immediately it was the one. Not too big, not too small, just perfect for my needs, with large windows that flooded the rooms with natural light and a small balcony where I could enjoy my morning coffee. The best part? No mortgage. The realtor did a double take when I told her I wanted to pay in full, probably thinking I was joking. The look on her face when I signed those papers was priceless. As soon as I got the keys, I took about 1,000,000 photos and posted them on social media. My friends went crazy with likes and comments, their genuine happiness for me making the moment even sweeter. But then my phone rang. It was Dad. "Julie," he said, his voice as dry as sandpaper, devoid of any warmth or congratulations. "I need you to come over for lunch next Saturday." That call brought back everything I'd been trying to forget, the years of emotional distance, the subtle and not so subtle favoritism, the way my childhood home had become foreign territory after my mom died when I was 9 and Dad remarried Sharon. Sharon wasn't the warmest person to begin with, but things with her daughter, Amy, only made the situation more unbearable. Amy was 3 years younger than me and had been the center of attention from the moment she arrived. While I was expected to be mature, responsible, and independent because I was older, Amy was coddled and pampered, her every whim catered to without question. My stomach tightened as I drove to their house that Saturday. I rang the doorbell and Dad answered without any warmth, just a curt "come in." Sharon barely acknowledged my presence, busying herself with straightening already straight picture frames, most of which featured Amy's achievements while my own academic accomplishments gathered dust in a box somewhere. Amy didn't even look up from her phone, sprawled across the couch like she owned it. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dad finally spoke, his words carefully measured. "Amy has graduated high school," he announced, as if this ordinary achievement was somehow extraordinary. "And she's enrolled in the local college." I nodded, wondering why this necessitated an emergency family meeting, until he added, "She needs somewhere to live. Your apartment would be perfect." I blinked, not sure if I'd heard him right. Did he really expect me to just give up my apartment? The one I had worked so hard to afford, the one that represented years of sacrifice and determination. "Yes," Dad said firmly, interpreting my silence as consideration. "Amy needs it more than you do. You're established in your career now and she's just starting out. It would be the right thing to do." What followed was a masterclass in manipulation. Dad reminded me of all the times he'd supported me, conveniently forgetting how he'd checked out emotionally after Mom died, guilt-tripped me about family obligations, ignoring how they'd excluded me from family events, and even suggested that Mom would have wanted me to help my sister, stepsister, and Mom never even knew her. The audacity of Dad and Sharon's request left me speechless. My apartment, the one I had worked years for, was supposed to be mine. I had earned it through countless sacrifices and long hours. And now, they wanted me to hand it over to Amy, a girl who had done nothing but torment me for years and who had never worked a day in her life. "Are you all completely insane?" I demanded, finding my voice at last. I'm not giving up my apartment, not now, not ever. Dad's face darkened, the mask of reasonable discussion slipping away to reveal the manipulation underneath. Your own money, he sneered. Your grandmother gave you $150,000. That's hardly your own money. You're being selfish, just like you've always been. Amy needs a fresh start, and you're in a position to help. Instead, you're choosing to be difficult. Something inside me snapped. I had spent years being quiet, taking their abuse, trying to be the bigger person. But this was it. This was the breaking point. You mean my mother's mother? I reminded him, biting back my anger. The woman who actually cared about me when you were too busy playing happy family with your new wife and daughter. The grandmother who watched me graduate while you were at Amy's dance recital. That grandmother. I could see the shock on Dad's face, but I wasn't done. Years of pent-up resentment came pouring out. You didn't raise me at all, I continued, my voice shaking with rage. You checked out the moment Mom died and Sharon moved in. Don't you dare talk about how you raised me when you can't even remember what college I graduated from. Amy, for the first time, looked up from her phone, her face twisted in a dramatic frown that had worked on Dad countless times before. You're such a terrible sister, she wailed, right on cue. You've always been so mean to me. Daddy, make her give me the apartment. Dad and Sharon jumped to comfort Amy while I stood there, invisible once again. They continued their emotional manipulation, throwing around words like family duty and sisterly love, but I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my purse and stormed out, the door slamming behind me with a satisfying bang. As I drove home, my apartment, my sanctuary, I realized something important. Sometimes the family you're born into or thrust into isn't really family at all. Real family supports your dreams, they don't try to steal them. Real family celebrates your achievements, they don't try to diminish them. And sometimes standing up for yourself means walking away from toxic relationships, even if those relationships are with people who are supposed to love you. My apartment keys felt heavy in my pocket, a solid reminder of everything I'd accomplished on my own. No matter what Dad, Sharon, or Amy thought, this was mine. I had earned it, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it away from me. Update 1. Let me draw my family picture to help you understand the complex dynamics that shaped my life. After my mom's death when I was 9, the relationship between my dad and me fractured in ways that would never fully heal. When Sharon entered our lives barely a year later, any hope of maintaining a close father-daughter bond vanished like morning mist. Their whirlwind romance and quick marriage left me reeling, still grieving my mother while trying to adjust to this new woman who seemed determined to erase all traces of our previous life. The birth of Amy when I was 11 marked a complete transformation in our household. Suddenly, there were two distinct sets of rules, one for Amy and one for me. New clothes, Amy got them before the seasons changed, while I wore hand-me-downs or bought my own with babysitting money. Toys, she had them before the words left her mouth. Family trips, they revolved entirely around Amy's dance recitals, school events, and social activities. Meanwhile, I became increasingly invisible in my own home, a ghost drifting through the hallways, trying not to disturb the real family. But there was one constant in my life, one person who saw me clearly and loved me unconditionally, my grandmother. Grandma's house became my sanctuary, a place where the weight of being unwanted lifted from my shoulders the moment I stepped through her door. I spent countless hours there playing board games with my cousins who treated me like I was truly part of their family. Unlike Amy, who seemed to take pleasure in making my life miserable, my cousins included me in everything from backyard adventures to secret cookie-stealing missions. Grandma watched everything that happened in our family with keen eyes and a heavy heart. She saw how Dad changed after Mom died, how he threw himself into his new relationship with Sharon, perhaps trying to outrun his grief. She noticed every time I was excluded from family photos, every birthday celebration that became all about Amy, every parent-teacher conference Dad skipped while attending every single one of Amy's school events. Your mother would be heartbroken to see this, she told me one afternoon when I was 15 after Dad had forgotten to pick me up from school again. But you're stronger than they know, and one day you'll build a life so beautiful they'll regret not being part of it. The day I received my college acceptance letter was like being handed a key to freedom. The school was 3 states away, a distance I had specifically chosen, And while my scholarship covered most of the costs, my grandmother quietly paid the remainder, understanding that this was my chance to escape the toxic environment at home. Your mother put aside money for your education, Grandma told me as she handed me the check. I've been saving it, adding to it, waiting for this moment. She would be so proud of you. What she didn't tell me then, but I learned later, was that she had been documenting everything, keeping a detailed record of how I was treated, saving emails and texts, noting down incidents. She wanted to make sure that if things ever came to a head, I would have evidence of the years of emotional neglect. College was like finally being able to breathe after years of holding my breath. For the first time, I could be myself without constantly walking on eggshells. During holidays, I stayed with Grandma, where celebrations felt genuine and warm, not like the performative family gatherings at Dad's house. But when I graduated and received a job offer back in my home state, things took an unexpected turn. I had planned to stay with Dad and Sharon temporarily, just a few weeks while I found my own place. I hadn't expected them to welcome me with open arms, but their response still stung. "Oh, we gave your room to Amy," Sharon announced with barely concealed satisfaction. "She needs the extra space for her things." Dad didn't say a word in my defense. He stood there, silent as always, avoiding eye contact, probably hoping I would just quietly accept this like I had accepted everything else over the years. The message was clear: there was no place for me in their home, just as there had never really been a place for me in their family. Grandma, true to form, welcomed me with open arms. "I've been preparing the guest room," she said when I called her, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "It's yours for as long as you need it." She had known, somehow, that this would happen. She had seen it coming from miles away, understanding the patterns in my father's behavior better than I did. Those months living with Grandma were healing in ways I hadn't expected. We spent evenings talking about Mom, sharing stories and memories that Dad had seemed eager to forget. After a few months of saving aggressively, I had enough to rent my own little apartment. It wasn't much, a small one-bedroom with questionable plumbing and noisy neighbors, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every dish in the cupboard, every picture on the wall represented my independence. Grandma helped me move in, bringing homemade curtains and her famous lasagna, making the space feel like home from day one. Looking back, I realize now that Grandma didn't just provide me with emotional support. She was actively working to ensure I would be able to stand on my own feet, knowing that the day would come when my father's family would try to take advantage of me. Her inheritance wasn't just money, it was protection, a shield against the manipulation and control that she knew would eventually come my way. Update 2. Thanks for all your support on my last post. Here's what happened after everything went down. The next morning, my phone rang again. It was Dad. "Julie, listen to me," he started before I could even say hello. "You're the older sister. You need to help Amy. This is what family does. We've raised you better than this." I almost laughed at the audacity. Family? Now he wanted to talk about family. The same man who had stood silently by while his wife systematically pushed me out of my childhood home now wanted to lecture me about family obligations. Where was this family spirit when Sharon kicked me out of my room? I asked, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. Where was it when Amy made my life hell? Where was it during every Christmas, every birthday, every milestone you missed because Amy had something more important going on? "That's different," he insisted, his voice rising with frustration. "You're being unreasonable. Amy needs this opportunity and you're in a position to help. Why are you being so selfish?" I cut him off mid-lecture. The word selfish echoed in my head. How many times had they used that word to manipulate me into giving up what was rightfully mine? But this time was different. This time I had something worth protecting. The harassment didn't stop with that call. Sharon bombarded me with texts, each message more vitriolic than the last. She called me selfish, ungrateful, a disappointment to my mother's memory. That last one particularly stung, coming from the woman who had worked so hard to erase every trace of my mom from our home. But I didn't care anymore. After years of disrespect and emotional manipulation, this was the final straw. A week after the confrontation, I went ahead with my housewarming party as planned. I had invited friends, family members who actually cared about me, and my cousins. But then my cousin pulled me aside, his expression serious. He had something to show me, he said, leading me to a quiet corner of the apartment. When he handed me his phone, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The screen showed a photo of Sharon sitting in a restaurant with a man I didn't recognize. They weren't just having lunch. They were kissing intimately like longtime lovers. I felt my stomach churn as my cousin continued scrolling through more photos, each one more damning than the last. Sharon, who had spent years positioning herself as the moral authority in our household, was having an affair. But that wasn't even the biggest shock. The man in the photos wasn't just any random lover. His name was Robert. According to my cousin's investigation, he was Amy's biological father. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Sharon had been maintaining a relationship with her ex all these years, right under my father's nose. I saved copies of the photos, waiting for the right moment. That moment came sooner than I expected. One afternoon, when I returned home from work, I found Dad, Sharon, and Amy standing in front of my door. They didn't wait for an invitation. Sharon simply pushed past me the moment I opened the door, Amy trailing behind her with that familiar entitled smirk, and Dad bringing up the rear with his usual look of stern disapproval. The scene that unfolded in my living room was surreal. Sharon and Dad were discussing renovation plans as if they already owned the place, while Amy wandered around with her phone out, showing them pictures of furniture she wanted to buy. They were literally planning to redecorate my apartment without my consent. I stood there watching this circus unfold in my own home, and something inside me clicked. This was the perfect moment to use what my cousin had given me. "Hey," I said, my voice cutting through their planning session. "I have something to say." They turned to look at me, probably expecting me to cave under the pressure. After thinking deeply, I've decided to give this apartment to Amy. Their faces lit up with triumph, and Sharon actually clapped her hands together in satisfaction. "Just considering it an older sister's gift," I added, "and I also have a housewarming gift." Dad was already pulling out his phone, probably to call his lawyer, when I handed him the stack of photos. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as the color drained from his face, his hands shaking as he flipped through picture after picture of his wife with her ex-lover. What happened next was chaos. Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red as realization dawned. With a roar of rage, he started smashing things, my vase, my coffee table, anything within reach. Sharon was screaming, trying to explain, while Amy stood frozen, her phone slipping from her nerveless fingers as she processed what the photos meant. I calmly walked to my bedroom, pulled out my phone, and called the police. I had been recording everything since they arrived, capturing both the property damage and their attempts to coerce me into giving up my apartment. When the officers arrived, they found my father still in the midst of his rampage, Sharon hysterical, and Amy having what appeared to be a complete meltdown. The aftermath was messy but decisive. I pressed charges for the property damage, using both the photos I'd taken and my security camera footage as evidence. I filed for a restraining order against all three of them, documenting years of harassment and manipulation alongside the recent incident. It was a long road to understanding just how deep the betrayal went. The investigation revealed that Sharon's affair had been ongoing for years, predating even her marriage to my father. Amy had been Robert's daughter all along, a fact Sharon had hidden to maintain her comfortable lifestyle with my father. The truth unraveled their carefully constructed facade, exposing years of lies and manipulation. The following months were a blur of legal proceedings and family drama. Dad, once he recovered from his initial rage, tried to blame me for destroying his marriage. "If you hadn't been so selfish about the apartment, none of this would have happened," he said during one of his attempts to contact me despite the restraining order. Sharon's carefully cultivated image in our community crumbled as the story spread. Amy, faced with the truth about her parentage, had her own crisis to deal with. I heard through the grapevine that she moved in with Robert, her biological father, who apparently had been trying to be part of her life all along. The whole experience was painful but liberating. I wasn't the problem child they had made me out to be, I was just the one who had finally exposed their web of lies. I had fought for what was mine, stood my ground, and in doing so, unveiled the truth they had worked so hard to hide. I've since rebuilt my life, surrounding myself with people who value honesty and respect boundaries. My apartment has been repaired and redecorated, erasing the physical evidence of that day's chaos. My cousins, particularly Jack, have become even closer, forming the supportive family network I always longed for. The most important lesson I learned through all of this: never let anyone take what you've worked hard for, no matter how much they try to manipulate you with claims of family obligation. True family isn't about blood or legal ties, it's about respect, trust, and mutual support. If someone can't offer you those basic things, they don't deserve a place in your life, regardless of what they call themselves.
We should take a break. 3 months to experience life on our own. My fiancée said 4 months before our wedding. I agreed, then drafted a contract that would force her to finally face the consequences. Read it, am I taking crazy pills here? My fiancée Monica and I have been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Wedding is supposed to be in October, venue booked, invitations sent, deposit checks cashed, the whole 9 yards. 3 weeks ago, Monica came home from her girls' night out and asks if we can talk. She sat me down on our couch, the one we picked out together last year, and just started talking. Jackson, I've been thinking a lot lately, she says, fidgeting with her engagement ring. About us, about the wedding, about everything. My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever starts with "I've been thinking." I love you, she continued, but I feel like we're rushing into this whole marriage thing without really knowing if we're compatible long term. Compatible, I set down my beer. Monica, we've been together 4 years. I know, I know. She waved her hands like she was trying to calm down an angry client. But think about it, we got together in college, moved in together right after graduation. We've never really been independent adults. What are you saying? She took a deep breath. I think we should take a break this summer, just a pause, 3 months to experience life on our own before we settle down forever. I'm staring at her, waiting for the punchline. A break, 3 months before our wedding. It's not about not wanting to marry you, she says quickly. It's about making sure we're choosing each other for the right reasons. It's like quality assurance for relationships. Quality assurance. She's talking about our 4-year relationship like it's a software update. Monica, what exactly does this break involve? Well, we'd live separately for the summer. Her proposal sounds like a calculated risk assessment, clinical and detached. She's pitching this break with the enthusiasm of a corporate strategy meeting, completely oblivious to the emotional grenade she's just lobbed into our relationship. Her eyes are bright, almost excited. Her hands move expressively, as if she's mapping out some grand adventure. No contact except for emergencies, she continues, leaning forward, and we'd be free to explore. Date other people, see what else is out there. I was sitting there watching the woman I love basically tell me she wanted to explore other options guilt-free. Something cracked inside me and my lawyer brain kicked in. She was going on about how everyone does this now, and we need to be sure. And what if we have regrets? The whole time I was thinking about the $30K we've already dropped, the shared apartment lease, our joint savings account. Here's the thing, Monica works in marketing, makes decent money, but I'm carrying most of our financial load. Our apartment, my name, my deposit, my credit check, wedding expenses. 70% me because I make more and I wanted this dream wedding for her. Joint account. I put in 3 times what she does, not because she asked, but because I wanted to build a life together. For a second during her speech, she looked genuinely terrified about losing me. But then this look crossed her face, like she was fighting between what she wanted and what she thought she should want. Classic Monica. She always knew exactly what to say to make me doubt myself. So she finished her little speech about needing space to grow and making sure we're right for each other. And I just nodded, told her I understood, that we should probably make this official with some ground rules. She lit up like Christmas morning, started talking about how mature we're being, how this proves we're meant to be together. Meanwhile, I'm already thinking about contract terms. See, here's what Monica didn't consider. I spend my days writing agreements that protect my clients from people who want to have their cake and eat it too. And that's exactly what this was. I told her we should draft something formal, just to keep things clean and make sure we're both protected. She thought this was incredibly romantic, like we're sophisticated Europeans or some shit. Spent the weekend drafting what I'm calling the summer break agreement. Monica thinks it's just about who keeps the apartment and whether we can date other people. She has no idea what she's about to sign. The contract covers all the basics Monica expected. She moves out and I keep the apartment since it's in my name anyway. No contact between us except for actual wedding planning emergencies, which I defined very narrowly. Complete financial separation with all joint accounts frozen and each person responsible for their own expenses during the break. There's even a dating clause that technically allows seeing other people, but with enough conditions and notification requirements to make it complicated. But buried in the middle of all that standard separation language is my insurance policy, a financial responsibility clause for wedding disruption. If either party terminates the break early, they're acknowledging that their request for separation was premature and caused unnecessary complications to our wedding planning. In that case, they become responsible for 1. All non-refundable wedding deposits and vendor fees already paid by the other party, and 2. Any additional costs incurred due to wedding changes or cancellations. I buried this in Section 7, subsection C, written in the kind of legal language Monica's marketing brain skips right over. To her, it probably reads like standard legal boilerplate. Monica signed it yesterday without reading past page 2. She was too excited about her hot girl summer to bother with the fine print. She's moving out this weekend. I'm changing the locks on Sunday. Part of me can't believe this is happening. 4 years together and she's willing to risk it all for what? Some fantasy about wild nights and finding herself. But another part of me, the lawyer part, is almost curious to see how this plays out. I know Monica. I know she's not thinking long-term. She's thinking about validation, attention, the grass is greener syndrome. What she's not thinking about is what happens when September rolls around and she wants to come back to a life I might not be willing to share anymore. This is probably above Reddit's pay grade, but am I protecting myself or am I being vindictive? Should I have just said no and forced a real conversation? Edit. To answer the most common questions, yes, I still love her. No, I don't think she's cheating yet. And yes, I realize this might end our relationship permanently. Plot twist. Being a lawyer finally paid off in my love life. Update 1. Posted 2 weeks ago. So the thing is, every single person who said she's already got someone lined up was right on the money. So Monica moved out last Saturday. I helped her pack. We had this weird cordial goodbye where she kissed my cheek and said she loved me and would see me in September. Like she was going to summer camp. I changed the locks Sunday morning and then just sat in our apartment. My apartment now, I guess. It was so quiet. 4 years of shared space, and suddenly it's just me and the echo of my own thoughts. But here's where it gets interesting. Monica lasted exactly 5 days before she started testing the contract boundaries. Wednesday night, she shows up at my door with takeout from our favorite Thai place. Says she missed me and thought we could have a friendly dinner. I remind her about the no contact clause and she gets this look, like she's forgotten there are actual consequences to her choices. Come on, Jackson, it's just dinner. We're not getting back together. That's when I realized Monica never actually read the contract. She thought it was just about living arrangements and dating permissions. She had no idea about the financial implications. I didn't let her in, told her to review Section 4, subsection A regarding contact restrictions. She left the food on my doorstep and drove off. Thursday, I get a text. Can we talk about the wedding planning? The venue needs final headcount. Technically a planning emergency, so I called her back. 30 seconds into the conversation, she's crying about how hard this is and how much she misses our life together. I ended the call and documented it as a boundary violation attempt. Friday, she posted Instagram stories of her out with her single girlfriends, dancing, drinks, the whole show. But here's what's telling. She's still wearing our engagement ring in every photo. Saturday night, unknown number calls me at 11 p.m. It's Monica, drunk, calling from her friend Sarah's phone. She's sobbing about making a mistake and wanting to come home. I don't know what I was thinking, Jackson. This isn't what I wanted. Can I come over, please? Here's the thing, my heart broke listening to her cry. 4 years of loving someone doesn't just disappear because they sign a contract. But my brain knew exactly what this was: buyer's remorse after 1 week of consequences. I told her to read the contract, specifically Section 7. If she wanted to end the break early, she needed to understand what that meant. She hung up. Sunday morning, she texts, "I read it, all of it. We need to talk." Coffee shop meeting. Neutral ground. That's when Monica realized what she'd actually committed to. If she wanted to end the break early, essentially admitting her summer break was a mistake, she'd be taking financial responsibility for all the wedding chaos she'd created. Every deposit I'd paid, every vendor fee, every rebooking cost if we had to change dates. $68,000. She'd asked for this separation, and if she couldn't see it through, she'd own the financial consequences of that decision. "You tricked me," she said. "I protected myself," I replied. "You wanted to pause our relationship but keep all the security it provided. You wanted to explore other options while I held our life together, including a $68K wedding. The contract just makes it clear that if you change your mind about needing space, you handle the financial mess that decision created. You asked for this break, Monica. If you can't commit to it, that's on you." She left without another word. But here's the really messed up part. I think I'm starting to see who Monica really is for the first time. Not the woman I fell in love with, but the person who could look at 4 years of partnership and think, "Let me just pause this while I see what else is out there." The woman I loved wouldn't have asked for this break. She would have talked to me about whatever she was feeling. We would have worked through it together. This Monica. This Monica wants safety nets and backup plans. She wants to test drive other lives while keeping ours in her back pocket. I don't know if I want her back anymore. Edit. Some of you are asking if I'm being vindictive. Maybe. But answer me this: if your partner asked for a break 3 months before your wedding, wouldn't you want to know they were serious about the consequences? Monica's friends have been reaching out. Apparently I'm controlling and manipulative for trapping her with legal language. Yeah, okay. I trapped her by letting her get exactly what she asked for. Update 2. Posted 1 week ago. This is probably going to be my most insane update yet, and that's saying something. So after Monica realized what she'd actually signed, she went full nuclear trying to get out of the contract. First, she claimed I'd coerced her into signing. Then she said it was unconscionable and wouldn't hold up legally. Then she tried to argue that my failure to explain the terms clearly made the whole thing invalid. I reminded her that she's engaged to a lawyer, not a scam artist. Every clause in that contract is ironclad, and she signed it with full legal capacity after requesting time to review it. But here's where shit gets real. Monica wasn't just having second thoughts about the break. She was having second thoughts because her freedom summer imploded spectacularly. Remember how I said Reddit called it? Well, you guys were right about the someone already lined up part, but wrong about it being an affair. It was worse. Turns out Monica had been in touch with her college ex-boyfriend Derek for months. You know, the one who got away. The one she mentioned maybe a few too many times over the years, always with this wistful look. The one I always suspected was the real reason behind this whole break idea. Derek lives in Austin now, works in tech, never married, looks exactly like the kind of guy who posts gym selfies and quotes about authentic living. Monica flew down there last weekend for what she told me was a girls' trip with Sarah. Except Sarah was never going to Austin. Monica went alone. Here's the beautiful part. Derek was initially very excited to reconnect with his college girlfriend, right up until Monica explained she was engaged and only taking a break from her relationship. Apparently, Derek has principles I didn't expect. His exact words, according to Monica's tearful confession: "I'm not going to be your midlife crisis experiment. Figure out your life, then call me." Dude basically told her he wasn't interested in being her backup plan while she kept me on ice. The audacity of this woman continues to astound me. She thought she could just waltz back into his life and pick up where they left off. Monica came back from Austin devastated. Not because she missed me, but because her fantasy backup plan rejected her. The whole romantic reunion she'd built up in her head. Dead on arrival. So Sunday night she shows up at my apartment again, but this time she's not crying or apologetic, she's angry and desperate. "I want to end this break early," she announced, like she was canceling a gym membership. I reminded her about Section 7 and the financial responsibility clause. "Fine," she said. "I'll pay it. I just want us to go back to normal." Here's what Monica didn't understand. The financial clause wasn't about buying her way back into the relationship. It was about taking responsibility for the disruption she'd caused. Even if she paid every penny of those wedding costs, that didn't automatically restore our engagement. It just meant she was finally owning the consequences of asking for a break 3 months before our wedding. When I explained this, she completely lost it. "You planned this. You wanted me to fail." Maybe I did. Maybe part of me knew that someone who could ask for a break 3 months before our wedding while secretly fantasizing about her ex wasn't ready to be a wife. Maybe I wanted to see if she'd choose our life together or chase some college fantasy. She chose the fantasy. And when the fantasy didn't want her back, she tried to return me like a dress that didn't fit. The conversation ended with Monica screaming that I was psychopathic and that she was calling a lawyer. I told her she was welcome to try, but that any attorney worth their retainer would tell her the contract was solid. She left, and I haven't heard from her since. But yesterday, Monica's mom called me. "Mrs. Larson and I have always had a good relationship. She's the one who taught me to make Monica's favorite dumplings." Apparently, Monica told her family that I'm holding her hostage with the contract and forcing her to choose between love and bankruptcy. I explained the real situation to Mrs. Larson. The break request, the contract terms, the Austin trip with Derek, all of it. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Jackson," she said, "I raised Monica to be strong and independent, but I didn't raise her to be cruel. What she asked of you. That wasn't fair, and the way she's handling the consequences isn't the woman I thought I raised." Then she said something that hit me like a truck. "Maybe you two aren't ready for marriage, but not because you're incompatible, because Monica isn't ready to be a partner." Mrs. Larson asked if I thought we could work through this, go to counseling, rebuild trust. I told her honestly, I don't know if I want to try. The Monica I fell in love with would never have secretly planned to reconnect with her ex while asking me for a break. We would have worked through her doubts together. This Monica wanted to hedge her bets, keep me secure while testing if Derek still wanted her. When he didn't, she expected to just slide back into our life like nothing happened. I don't think I can marry someone who views our relationship as Plan B. Edit. Monica's friend Sarah has been deeming me nonstop. Apparently I'm ruining Monica's life and need to be a man and forgive her. Yeah, no, being a man means having standards and self-respect. Several of you have asked about the wedding. It's still technically scheduled for October 15th, but honestly, I'm starting to think there won't be a wedding to cancel. Derek actually reached out to me through LinkedIn yesterday. Stand-up guy. We're grabbing drinks next week to compare notes about Monica's manipulation tactics. Final update. Posted 3 days ago. Reddit. This is it. The final chapter of the most expensive summer of my life. September 1st came and went. The contract officially expired, meaning Monica was free to contact me without triggering the financial responsibility clause. I waited to see what she'd do. She waited exactly 6 hours. At 12:06 a.m. on September 2nd, my phone lit up. "Contract's over. Can we talk?" We met for coffee yesterday morning. Neutral ground, public place. Monica looked different, tired, like the summer had aged her more than 3 months should. But there was something else, a desperate edge I'd never seen before. She started with a scripted apology. How she'd been selfish, how she'd taken our relationship for granted, how the break was the biggest mistake of her life. All the things you'd expect to hear from someone whose backup plan had fallen through. But then she said something that stopped me cold. "I know you're still angry about Derek, but nothing happened between us. He wouldn't even kiss me because I was engaged to you." I hadn't mentioned Derek. She brought him up on her own, which told me everything I needed to know about her guilt and priorities. "Monica," I said, "this was never about Derek specifically. This was about you looking at 4 years of partnership and thinking, let me just see what else is out there first." She tried to interrupt, but I kept going. You didn't want space to grow or find yourself. You wanted permission to shop around while keeping me as your safety net. You had your college fantasy all planned out, and when he rejected you, you came running back to your reliable fiancé. The conversation went on for 2 hours. Monica cried, apologized, promised things would be different. She'd blocked Derek on everything, she said. She was ready to commit fully, go to counseling, whatever it took. For a moment, watching her break down, I felt that old protective instinct kick in. For years of loving someone doesn't just disappear. But then I remembered her face when she first asked for the break, that excited, liberated expression when she thought she could have both security and adventure. Here's what I realized over these 3 months. Monica had always been hedging her bets with me. The break wasn't some sudden impulse. It was the logical conclusion of how she'd been treating our relationship all along. The woman who could secretly plan to reconnect with her ex while asking for a break is the same woman who kept Derek on social media just as friends. The same woman who never quite moved all her stuff into our apartment, always keeping one foot out the door. The same woman who'd mentioned Derek just often enough to keep him in my mind as a threat. I've spent 12 weeks watching Monica try to activate her backup plan, fail, and then attempt to return to me like I'm some consolation prize. That's not love. That's convenience with a dash of panic. So I told her no. What does that mean for us? She asked, and I could see genuine terror in her eyes. It means we're done, Monica. Really done this time. She left the engagement ring on the table. I'm still not sure if it was a dramatic gesture or genuine surrender, but I didn't pick it up. The wedding is officially canceled. I've spent the last 3 days calling vendors, explaining the situation, dealing with the financial fallout. Monica never triggered the financial responsibility clause because she never officially terminated the break early. When I ended the engagement after the contract expired, that was my decision based on what I'd learned about her character, not a contract violation. So we're splitting the wedding costs according to our original arrangements, painful but not catastrophic. Monica's been texting me regularly since our conversation, alternating between begging for another chance and accusing me of being vindictive. Neither approach is working. Mrs. Larson called me again yesterday. She understood my decision, she said, but was sad to see us end this way. You would have been a good son-in-law, Jackson. I hope Monica learns from this. I hope so too. Some of you said I was too harsh, that love means forgiveness and second chances. Maybe you're right. Maybe in 5 years, Monica and I will laugh about this over drinks and wonder what we were thinking. But right now, today, I know I made the right choice. I protected myself from someone who was willing to gamble our entire future on a college fantasy. The contract did exactly what I designed it to do. It showed me who Monica really was when faced with real consequences. I'm 31 years old, I have a good career, and I know what I bring to a relationship. I'm not going to settle for someone who sees me as Plan B while she chases Plan A. The summer break is over, but so is everything else. And honestly, I feel free for the first time in months. Edit. For those asking about Derek, we did grab drinks. Solid guy who dodged a bullet. Monica apparently spent their entire Austin conversation talking about our relationship and how confused she was. He noped out fast.
Sign the prenup or you don't love me, my fiancée demanded over breakfast. I showed everyone her true colors instead. Now her family's empire is crumbling. I'm a 29-year-old guy who built a catering business from scratch over the last 5 years. It's not some fancy Silicon Valley startup or anything, just good old-fashioned hard work, great food, and a passion for creating memorable experiences. My parents always said I had a gift for making people happy through my cooking. 5 years ago, I took their encouragement to heart, scraped together my savings, rented a tiny kitchen space, and started hustling for clients. Word spread, and what started as a weekend gig grew into something real. Now I've got regular employees, steady customers, and even managed to buy my own house 2 years ago. I'm not rolling in millions, but I'm comfortable and proud of what I've built. Then there's Amanda, not her real name, my ex-fiancée. We met at a friend's birthday party when she was 27. The attraction was instant. She had this magnetic confidence that drew me in. Initially, everything felt perfect. She'd show up at my catering events, taste test new dishes, and playfully critique my experiments in the kitchen. My parents adored her, especially my mom, who thought she'd found the perfect daughter-in-law. Looking back, the red flags were there from the start. She'd get oddly jealous when I praised my female employees, even for the most basic professional accomplishments. She'd make these subtle comments about my house, saying things like, "It's too much responsibility for one person," or "When we're married, everything should be in both our names." I brushed it off as normal relationship talk, thinking she was just excited about our future together. Amanda came from money. Her parents owned some impressive real estate in another state. I figured she was just used to a certain lifestyle, and I wanted her to feel secure with me. God, was I naive. The proposal was straight out of a romantic movie. I cooked her favorite dish, set up candles everywhere, and got down on one knee. She was ecstatic, jumping around, taking photos to send to her friends. It felt like a dream come true. If someone had warned me then what was coming, I would have laughed in their face. The wedding planning started normally enough, but Amanda quickly took control. She had specific demands for everything: the venue, her dress, the guest list that had to include various influential people from her family's social circle. Then, about 2 weeks after our engagement, she dropped the prenup bomb. Now, I'm not against prenups. They can be smart, protecting both parties' interests, but what Amanda proposed wasn't a prenup. It was a robbery contract. She wanted me to put my house in her name and agree that she'd get half my business if we divorced. It wasn't mutual protection. It was a straight-up asset grab. Her manipulation tactics were incredible and escalated over time. At first, she started with subtle guilt trips. She'd casually mention how all her wealthy friends had prenups that protected both parties. She'd leave browser tabs open on my laptop showing horror stories about bitter divorces where businesses were torn apart. Every time we'd watch a movie with a divorce plot, she'd make pointed comments about how smart couples protect themselves. Then she moved to more direct emotional manipulation. "If you don't sign this, you don't trust me," she'd say, tears welling up in her eyes. "I thought we were building a future together, but you're treating me like an outsider." She'd spend hours talking about her friend whose husband left her with nothing, conveniently ignoring that this friend had never worked a day in her life. Her tactics got more aggressive when the subtle approach didn't work. She started scheduling casual dinners with successful couples she knew, where the wives would inevitably steer the conversation toward how their prenups strengthened their marriages. One wife even cornered me in the kitchen, saying, "Amanda's just trying to protect herself. Don't you want her to feel secure?" The family pressure came next. "You'd be insulting my family if you refuse," she declared. Her mother started calling me regularly, sharing stories about couples they knew who divorced messily because they didn't have proper agreements in place. Her father's business friends would randomly drop by my catering events, making comments about how family businesses need to be properly structured for marriage. She even started working on my parents, showing up at their house when I wasn't around, crying about how uncertain her future felt without this protection. She'd bring articles about failed marriages and business bankruptcies, strategically leaving them around my parents' house. She tried to convince my mother that she was just being practical and modern about marriage. When these initial tactics failed, she escalated to psychological warfare. The silent treatments began, but they weren't just simple cold shoulders. She'd time them perfectly, right before important catering events when she knew I needed to focus, or during family gatherings where her silence would be noticed. She'd slam doors, ignore my attempts at conversation, and sigh dramatically whenever I mentioned anything about work or friends. She started forgetting to tell me about important calls or messages from clients. Once, she accidentally deleted a crucial email about a big corporate event, claiming her phone must have malfunctioned. These little sabotages were always just plausible enough to deny, but frequent enough to wear me down. Her manipulation extended to our intimate life, too. She'd withdraw physically, making comments about how stress about the future was affecting her ability to be close to me. If I tried to be affectionate, she'd pull away, saying she couldn't feel secure in our relationship while the prenup was unsigned. One night, I caught her at 2 a.m. rummaging through my office, clearly searching for financial documents. When confronted, she claimed she was looking for her passport, but we both knew that was a lie. The next day, I noticed several business documents had been photographed. I could see the flash marks on my security camera footage. When I confronted her about this, she turned it around on me, accusing me of being paranoid and untrusting. She even started messing with my daily routine in subtle ways. She'd accidentally turn off my alarm before important meetings, or forget to buy groceries when she knew I had menu testing scheduled with potential clients. Each incident was minor enough on its own, but together they formed a pattern of deliberate disruption. She started recruiting allies in her campaign with military precision. She'd host dinner parties where she'd strategically seat me next to her friends who worked in finance or law. They'd casually interrogate me about my business while I was trying to eat. "How profitable is your catering business, really?" they'd ask. "Or are you sure you can handle a big wedding?" Some would even pull out calculators, trying to break down my business margins right at the dinner table. Amanda orchestrated group outings with other couples where the husbands would mysteriously all have similar stories about how signing their assets over had saved their marriages. One guy even pulled me aside at a barbecue to confess how his prenup saved him from himself. Later, I found out Amanda had promised to cater his wife's charity events at a discount in exchange for this performance. She started inviting her lawyer friends to our casual gatherings. They'd corner me after a few drinks, offering to draw up the paperwork as a wedding gift. One particularly pushy attorney kept sending me sample agreements that all somehow included clauses about transferring my business assets to Amanda. The manipulation extended to my social circle. She started telling mutual friends that I was being controlling about money, painting herself as the victim of a financially abusive relationship. Some friends actually bought it at first, sending me concerned messages about treating her right. Her father's involvement took things to another level. He called me one afternoon, skipping any pleasantries. "We need to talk about you signing that paperwork. My daughter deserves security." When I explained how one-sided the agreement was, he actually threatened me with legal action, mentioning his connections to high-powered attorneys. Amanda's most calculated move was targeting my mother. She showed up at my parents' house one afternoon, sobbing about how my refusal to sign meant I didn't really love her. She told my mom that her family would be devastated if the wedding was called off over this, implying it would somehow shame both families. Thankfully, my mom had already seen through her act and remained neutral. The breaking point came 2 months before the wedding. Amanda presented a new version of the prenup over breakfast, even more demanding than the last. I told her straight to her face, "I'm done." That's when she went ballistic, shouting, insulting me, claiming I was a cheat and a liar. She even spewed some nonsense that I must be hiding money or planning to bail on her eventually. That's when my revenge began, though I prefer to call it justice. First, I documented everything, every threatening message, every manipulative conversation, every attempt to pressure me through family and friends. I hired a lawyer who confirmed what I already knew: her prenup would never hold up in court. I started systematically dismantling her narrative. Every time she told people I was being unreasonable, I'd calmly share the actual prenup terms, asking if they'd sign away their house and business to someone they'd known for 2 years. The reactions were priceless. Suddenly, her supporters weren't so supportive anymore. When she demanded reimbursement for wedding expenses, I was ready. I had every receipt, every email thread showing which accounts made the deposits. Through my lawyer, I made it clear that I wouldn't be paying for her wedding prep expenses, including the ridiculous claim that I should reimburse her for spa days. I reached out to all the wedding vendors, explaining the situation and warning them about potential drama. This proved crucial when Amanda tried to cause problems with my photographer friend, demanding free engagement photos. The photographer stood her ground, reminding Amanda that the photos were her intellectual property. The revenge really kicked in when Amanda's father tried to intimidate me again. I recorded his threatening voicemail and had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter, warning that any further harassment would result in legal action. The mighty businessman suddenly went very quiet. But my favorite part? I used my business connections to my advantage. When Amanda started spreading rumors about me in our local business community, I let slip to some key clients about her attempts to take over my company through a manipulative prenup. Word spread quickly in our tight-knit business circle, and suddenly, doors that might have been open to her family's influence were quietly closing. I even heard that some of her family's business associates started questioning their dealings with her father, wondering if his aggressive tactics with me reflected how he conducted business. The irony of their reputation taking a hit because of their own actions wasn't lost on me. The aftermath was satisfying. Amanda's carefully constructed image as the wronged fiancé crumbled as the truth spread. Her friends started distancing themselves, especially after I showed them proof of her late-night office snooping and manipulation attempts. Even her loyal defenders couldn't justify her actions once they saw the full picture. Meanwhile, my business has thrived. The corporate clients who heard about how I handled the situation actually increased their contracts, appreciating my integrity and strength under pressure. I've expanded my operations, hired more staff, and even opened a second kitchen space. Looking back, I'm grateful for the experience, as crazy as that sounds. It taught me to trust my instincts, stand my ground, and recognize that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone's true colors show while you continue to succeed. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, document everything, know your worth, and don't let anyone pressure you into giving away what you've worked hard to build. Sometimes the person you think is your perfect match is actually perfect at hiding their true intentions. I'm still single, focusing on my business and personal growth. My house is still in my name, my business is thriving, and I sleep well at night knowing I dodged what could have been a devastating bullet. As for Amanda, last I heard, she's still telling anyone who will listen about how I ruined everything, but her audience gets smaller every day. The best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting ahead and letting karma handle the rest.
You're being possessive about normal friends' behavior, she snapped when I asked her to set boundaries with her just friends. She called me controlling and insecure. She never expected I'd catch them. So this is eating me alive and I need some perspective. I've been with my girlfriend Nora for about 2 years now, and things have been solid until recently. Nora works in cybersecurity. She's brilliant at it, but it's definitely a boys' club. Her entire friend group from work and grad school is basically all guys, except for one other girl named Jessica. Honestly, I don't mind at all. I'm not the kind of guy who believes men and women can't be real friends. When we first started dating, I thought it was cool that she could hang with the guys and hold her own. Her friends seemed really welcoming too, always inviting me to their hangouts, asking about my work, including me in conversations. I genuinely liked them all, but over the past few months something's shifted. Can't put my finger on it exactly. Nora has always been close with her friends, but lately it feels different, especially with this one guy, Hart. They have these inside jokes that go way back, which I get, but lately they've started using what I can only describe as pet names for each other. She calls him H in this really soft way, and he calls her Sunshine or Norbert. When I mentioned it seemed a bit much for friends, she laughed it off and said I was being weird about normal friendship. Here's the thing though, slowly but surely, I don't feel welcome in the group anymore. Nothing blatant, nothing obvious has changed. They're still polite, still include me in plans, still act friendly. But there's this subtle shift, like I'm watching their dynamic from the outside instead of being part of it. Conversations kind of die down when I join. Inside jokes get explained to me after the fact in this patronizing way. "Oh, you had to be there," followed by awkward silence. Last weekend we were at Hart's place for game night. Nora and Hart kept exchanging these looks, having whispered conversations. At one point she was sitting on the floor leaning against his legs while he was on the couch, and when I said something about it, not in a hostile way, just pointed it out, she got defensive. You're being possessive about normal friend behavior, she said. Everyone else kind of went quiet and I felt like the asshole. Was I being possessive? Maybe. But something felt off. I trust Nora completely, and I'm not trying to control who she's friends with. But shouldn't there be some boundaries when you're in a serious relationship? Like, I wouldn't be texting another girl at midnight or using pet names or being physically affectionate in ways that make my girlfriend uncomfortable. I have tried talking to her about this before. But whenever I try to bring this up, Nora immediately goes on the defensive, says I don't trust her, that I'm trying to control her friendships, that these people were her friends long before I came along, makes me feel like I'm being crazy and insecure. But here's the thing, I've never been the jealous type. My ex had guy friends and it never bothered me. I have female friends and Nora's never had an issue with it. This feels different somehow. Jessica's been weird too. She used to be really chatty with me, but lately she seems guilty, like she knows something I don't. Always watching me when Nora and Hart are being touchy-feely, then looking away quickly when I catch her. I keep telling myself I'm probably just imagining it, but it's getting harder and harder not to read into it. Am I being controlling? Is this normal friend behavior that I'm reading too much into, or should I trust my gut here? What would you do in this situation? Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Reading all your comments now. Some of you are saying I'm being controlling, others are saying trust my gut. Mixed feelings about that. For those asking, yes, Hart is single. Has been the whole time I've known him. Also, Jessica has been acting more distant lately, which is weird because we used to get along great. A lot of you are asking about specific examples. Here's one. Last month at a group dinner, Hart jokingly said Nora would make someone a perfect wife someday. She blushed and said maybe I already am someone's perfect wife while looking at him, not me. Everyone laughed it off, but it felt pointed. Update 1, posted 2 weeks ago. Thanks for all the advice on my last post, even those of you who told me I was being an insecure asshole. Maybe I needed to hear that too. So I sat Nora down last weekend and laid out exactly how I was feeling. Made it clear from the start that I wasn't trying to control her friendships or make her choose between me and her friends. Told her I understood that these were important relationships for her and that I respected that. But I also explained that some of their behaviors were crossing lines for me. The pet names, the physical touchiness, the late-night texting, the way I felt excluded from the group lately. Said I wasn't asking her to cut contact with anyone, but that I hoped we could establish some boundaries that would make me feel more secure in our relationship. Her reaction at first, she went full defense mode. So what, you don't trust me now? Her voice had that edge it gets when she's pissed, arms crossed, leaning back on the couch like she was physically pulling away from me. This isn't about trust, Nora. It's about boundaries, she actually laughed. Christian, these are my friends. They've been my friends since grad school. I'm not going to change who I am just because you're feeling insecure. That stung, but I kept my voice calm. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking for some basic respect for our relationship. Basic respect. Now she was standing up, pacing. You mean like not having friends, not being comfortable with people who have been in my life longer than you have? That's not what I said. It's what you're implying. She spun around to face me. You're trying to control who I can be friends with. This is exactly how it starts, you know. First it's tone down the friendships, then it's maybe don't see them as much, then it's complete isolation. I felt my stomach drop. Are you seriously comparing me to an abusive boyfriend right now? I'm saying that if you can't handle me having male friends, maybe you're not ready for an adult relationship. The silence stretched between us. Part of me wanted to back down, apologize, tell her she was right. But something held me in place. You're deflecting, I said finally. I'm what? You're deflecting. I came to you with a concern about specific behaviors, and instead of addressing what I actually said, you're making this about trust and control and painting me as some jealous psycho. She opened her mouth to respond, but I kept going. The pet names with Hart, the physical affection, the way I feel excluded when we're all together. Those are the things I'm talking about, not your right to have friends. She went quiet. I could see something shift in her expression, like she was recalculating. She sat back down, suddenly looking smaller. I didn't realize you felt excluded. The change in tone was so sudden it threw me off. What? I guess I've been so comfortable with them for so long that I didn't think about how it might look to you. She was looking down at her hands now, voice softer. That's not fair to you, I blinked. Okay. And you're right about the pet names. I can see how that would make you uncomfortable. She looked up at me, eyes a little watery. I love you, Christian. I don't want you to feel like you're not important to me. The whiplash from her anger to this vulnerability left me feeling off balance, but we actually talked after that. She agreed to tone down the pet names and physical affection with Hart specifically, said she'd make more of an effort to include me in group conversations and activities, even suggested that maybe we could do more couple friends things where it wasn't just me tagging along with her friend group. I felt so much better after that conversation, like we were finally on the same page. And you know what? For the past couple weeks, I've actually seen the changes. The group dynamic feels different. Better, honestly. Hart stopped with the sunshine bullshit, and Nora makes a real effort to include me in conversations. Last Friday, we all went to a brewery, and I actually felt like part of the group again instead of Nora's boyfriend who was just there. Jessica's been really nice to me lately, too. She's gone out of her way to include me in conversations and check in on how I'm feeling about everything. It's sweet, but the sudden shift also makes me wonder if she knows something I don't. But here's the strange thing. Even though everything seems so much better on the surface, I still get these moments where I have this nagging feeling that something's not right. Hard to explain. Everything looks perfect, but my gut is still telling me something's off. Maybe it's just that once you've felt excluded and suspicious, it's hard to just flip that switch off. Like, am I having trouble letting go of the negative feelings from before? I keep telling myself I'm losing it. But what if I'm not? What if I'm the only one seeing clearly? How long does it take to get past feelings of suspicion once your partner makes the changes you asked for? Am I overthinking this? Edit. A lot of you are saying trust my instincts. That's both reassuring and terrifying. For those asking about Hart's behavior specifically, he's been perfectly polite and appropriate since our conversation. No more pet names, keeps physical distance from Nora, includes me in conversations. On paper, everything's fine. Someone DM'd me asking if I've talked to Jessica about this. I haven't, but now I'm wondering if I should. She seems like she wants to tell me something but keeps holding back. Just remembered something weird from last week. I walked into the kitchen while Nora was on the phone and she quickly said, "I have to go," and hung up. When I asked who it was, she said it was work. But it was 10 p.m. on a Saturday. Who calls about work at 10 p.m. on a Saturday? Update 2. Posted 1 week ago. My hands are still shaking as I write this. You guys who told me to trust my gut were absolutely right. I should have listened sooner. Yesterday I stopped by Nora's apartment to grab my charger that I'd left there the night before. Texted her around 2 p.m. saying I was coming by, but she didn't respond. Figured she was probably busy with work or something. Her door was unlocked, which isn't unusual since she lives in a secure building. I walked in calling her name. No response. Could hear music playing from the bedroom, so I figured she was caught up in something on or was in the shower. As I walked toward the bedroom to grab my charger from the nightstand, I heard voices. That's when I stopped dead in my tracks. Through the cracked bedroom door, I could see Nora and Hart on the bed. Not just talking, not just hanging out. Hart was shirtless and Nora was in her bra straddling him while they made out like teenagers. Nora's laugh drifted through the crack, intimate, private, the kind I thought was mine alone. Then I saw her hand trailing down his chest and something inside me just broke. Hart's hands were all over her back, pulling her closer. The way Nora was moving against him, the soft sound she was making, I'd never seen her like that, not even with me. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, just watching, my girlfriend of 2 years, with her just a friend, feeling like my entire world was collapsing. Then I heard Hart say, "God, I've missed this. Only a few more weeks and we won't have to sneak around anymore." Nora laughed this breathless, happy sound and said, "Poor Christian actually thinks I'm trying to save our relationship. He's so easy to manipulate when he wants to believe something. That's when the rage hit, cold and sharp and crystal clear. I pushed the door open and said, "Well, this is enlightening. You should have seen them scramble." Nora literally fell off the bed, and Hart grabbed his shirt like it was going to somehow undo what I just witnessed. The look of pure panic on both their faces would have been hilarious if my heart wasn't being ripped out of my chest. "Christian," Nora stammered, scrambling for her shirt. "This isn't. We were just—" "Just what?" I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "Just sleeping with each other behind my back. Just laughing about how easy I am to manipulate. Just planning your future together while I'm playing the devoted boyfriend." Hart had the audacity to try to leave, stood up and said, "Man, I should go. This is between you two." "Sit the hell down," I told him. "You're part of this conversation now." Nora was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Christian, let me explain. This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like you've been cheating on me with Hart, probably for months, while making me feel like I was being controlling and insecure for noticing that something was off." The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "How long?" I asked. "Christian." "How long?" I shouted. Nora flinched. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Hart finally spoke up. His voice was quiet, almost guilty. "About 4 months. 4 months. 4 freaking months of lies, manipulation, and gaslighting. 4 months of making me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. 4 months of me apologizing for being suspicious while they laughed about it behind my back. And the whole friend group knows," I asked. Nora couldn't even look at me. "Some of them." "All of them," Hart corrected quietly. We asked them not to say anything." I started laughing, not because anything was funny, but because the alternative was screaming or punching a wall. The elaborate performance of the last few weeks, the boundaries conversation, Nora's sudden willingness to change. It was all theater designed to keep me quiet while they planned their next move. "So when you agreed to set boundaries," I said to Nora, "that wasn't because you wanted to fix our relationship. That was because you needed me to stop asking questions until you could find a clean way to dump me." She was sobbing now. "I do love you, Christian. I never meant for this to happen." "Bullshit." My voice was getting louder. "You meant for every second of this. You orchestrated this whole thing. You made me feel like I was going crazy, like I was the problem, while you were sleeping with him behind my back." I grabbed my charger from the nightstand. "We're done. Don't contact me. Don't come to my place. We're finished." "Please," Nora begged, reaching for me. "Can we just talk about this? I can explain everything." "There's nothing to explain. You cheated. You lied. You manipulated me. You made me doubt my own sanity. There's no coming back from this." Hart tried to say something, but I cut him off. "And you stay the hell away from me. You want her, you can have her, but you both deserve each other." I walked out and drove straight to my best friend Mike's house, told him everything. He just listened, handed me a beer, and said I could crash there as long as I needed. The worst part isn't even the cheating. It's the manipulation, the gaslighting, the way they made me feel like I was being unreasonable for noticing their obvious chemistry. The way the whole friend group was in on it, watching me make a fool of myself while they all knew the truth. I keep replaying moments from the past few months, seeing them in a completely different light. Every time I felt suspicious, every time my gut told me something was wrong, every time I thought I was being paranoid, I was right. I was always right. I'm done with all of them. Nora, Hart, Jessica, the whole crew. They can have their little drama circle without me. Edit. Nora has been calling and texting nonstop. I've blocked her on everything. Hart too. But before I blocked her, I could see what this was really about. She's not sorry, she's scared. Her messages went from "please let me explain" to "we need to talk about how we handle this" to "it doesn't have to get messy if we're both mature about it." She's not trying to win me back. She's trying to negotiate how much damage this does to her reputation. I've been crashing at my friend Mark's place. Need some emotional support. He says I can stay here as long as I need. Good to know I have real friends who actually give a shit about me. Just realized something. Jessica's weird behavior makes sense now. She wasn't feeling guilty about not knowing. She was feeling guilty about knowing and not telling me. Screw all of them. Final update. Posted 3 days ago, this whole nightmare has finally reached its conclusion, and I wanted to give you all a final update since you've been so supportive throughout this mess. After I caught Nora and Hart in bed together and broke up with her on the spot, I thought that would be the end of it. Naive, right? When she realized I wasn't going to play her negotiation games or keep quiet about what happened, she switched tactics. If she couldn't control me, she'd control everyone else's perception of me first. Within 24 hours, Nora had posted on social media about her toxic ex, who was controlling and couldn't handle her having male friends. She painted this whole picture of me as an insecure, manipulative boyfriend who tried to isolate her from her friends and made her feel like she had to choose between her relationship and her support system. Hart and the rest of her friend group immediately jumped in to support her story. They shared her posts, added their own comments about how uncomfortable I made them feel, how I was always interrogating Nora about her friendships, how they tried to include me but I was always suspicious and hostile. My own friends started asking me what the hell happened. My coworkers saw the posts. Even my mom called asking if I was okay. It was humiliating. The worst part was that some of it contained just enough truth to be believable. I had questioned her friendships. I had asked for boundaries. I had felt suspicious of her friend group. When you strip away the context of why I felt that way, it's easy to paint me as the bad guy. My boss pulled me aside Tuesday morning, said he'd seen some concerning posts about me online and wanted to make sure everything was okay. Professional life bleeding into personal drama, exactly what I didn't need. I was furious, not just about the cheating anymore, but about the character assassination. She was trying to rewrite history to make herself the victim and me the abuser. That's when I realized I needed to fight back with facts. First, I went through old text messages between me and Nora. Found plenty of evidence of her lying about where she was and who she was with. Screenshots of her saying she was working late. On nights, I later realized she was probably with Hart. Messages where she'd claimed to be at Jessica's when I later found out Jessica was out of town. But the real breakthrough came when Jessica reached out to me privately Wednesday night. Turns out watching Nora destroy my reputation online was too much for her conscience. "I can't do this anymore," she said when she called. Her voice was shaking. "What she's doing to you isn't right." Jessica sent me screenshots of the group chat where they'd all been discussing how to handle the Christian situation for months. Messages about coordinating their stories, about making sure I felt included just enough to stop asking questions, about how Hart and Nora needed to be more careful. The most damning was a message from Nora herself saying, "Christian's getting suspicious again. Everyone needs to be extra nice to him this weekend so he thinks he's being paranoid." Another one from Hart, "Maybe we should cool it for a while. He's asking too many questions." And Nora's response, "No way. I've worked too hard to set this up. Just follow my lead." Jessica said she'd wanted to tell me for weeks but was scared of the backlash. "I felt like such a coward," she said. "You deserve to know I'm sorry." I compiled everything into a clear, factual post. Screenshots of the lies, evidence of the coordination, Jessica's testimony about what had really been happening behind the scenes. I didn't need to get emotional or defensive. The evidence spoke for itself. The response was swift and brutal. Within hours, everything changed. Comment sections turned into graveyards. Friends who'd been backing Nora suddenly went silent. Hart deleted all his social media. 3 other people from the friend group sent me private apologies, saying they'd felt terrible about the whole thing but didn't know how to speak up without causing more drama. Even some people I barely knew reached out to apologize for believing Nora's version of events. One guy from my gym said he'd been giving me dirty looks all week based on what he'd read online. Nora tried damage control again, posted about how the messages were taken out of context, that she was just venting about relationship stress, that I was violating her privacy by sharing private conversations. But when multiple people from her own friend group started confirming the story, her narrative completely fell apart. My boss called to apologize and said the company had no concerns about the situation. My mom sent a care package. Small victories, but they matter. The whole thing has been exhausting, but I'm glad the truth is out there. I'm not the controlling, insecure boyfriend she tried to paint me as. I was a guy who noticed his girlfriend acting shady and trusted his instincts. I'm doing better now most days. On others, I still second-guess myself, wondering if I'll ever fully trust my instincts again. But still, I'm getting there. Do I still feel hurt? Absolutely. The woman I love spent months lying to my face and making me feel crazy for noticing her lies. But I also feel free. Free from walking on eggshells, free from second-guessing my own perceptions, free from people who could smile to my face while plotting behind my back. Thanks to everyone who supported me through this. Special thanks to those who told me to trust my instincts. You were right. The truth always comes out eventually. Edit. For those asking, Nora and Hart are apparently, officially together now. They can have each other. Jessica has completely cut ties with that friend group too. Says she feels terrible about her part in everything and is taking time to reflect on why she went along with it. We're not friends, but I respect her for coming forward.